welcome to Prepperties, where we're on the hunt for safe haven properties worldwide. I'm your host, Diane Cohn, and with me today is Darren Kaiser. Darren is the owner of PropertyChile.com in Talca, Chile. Welcome, Darren.
Hi, Diane. Thanks a lot. Thanks for having this call with me today.
Well, I'm so looking forward to getting to know you because Chile is of particular interest to me. So
Great.
Let me ask you, let's start from the beginning. How did you end up in Chile? What's your background?
How did I end up in Chile? It's kind of a long story, honestly. I've traveled quite a bit throughout the years in Europe, Northern Africa. I've seen most of the west coast of the Americas, from California all the way down here to Chile. And in 2007, 2008, I started thinking that my travels would be more specifically for scouting out opportunities in other countries. And after working my way all the way down the coast, from Central America down to South America, getting to Chile, it was just as clear as day when I got here that the most opportunity of any of the places I'd been before was in Chile.
So tell me about that. Why did it draw you in? What's the big opportunity down there?
Well, if you've been to a lot of different developing nations, you can kind of see things where it's really hard to get resources. There's just the local population has no capital. It's to see a situation and try to bring it up to speed. It can be really challenging. Where this strikes people all the time. A lot of people recognize this. When you get to Chile, you notice there's actually a wide range of resources available here. The local population, their disposable income is growing. There's a demand for tons of services, goods and services, which there aren't companies that are offering all these yet to meet all the demand. So it's kind of an entrepreneur's dream really coming here to see there's just all these little gaps in the marketplace where the right person with the knowledge of a market and a knowledge of logistics and things like that and Spanish capabilities can put things together and find the buyer, find the seller.
So what year did you arrive in Chile, and what's been happening in the market since you did arrive?
I got to Chile in June of 2010, and when I got here, I noticed that, especially in the central regions, there really wasn't much investment coming from the outside world. Most properties that were selling were all local buyers. When I got here in 2010, there were some foreigners, for instance, buying in Santiago and also down in the south in Patagonia. But in general, the market was growing at about anywhere from 8 to 10, maybe 12% per year on average. Throughout the general real estate, basically throughout the whole country. And the market in Santiago had taken a little tumble for right after the crisis in 2008. Prices kind of softened, came down maybe 10, 15, 20, up to 30% in certain areas. The markets in Santiago and in Patagonia had already seen some more foreign investors, but throughout the central regions where I work and where I have been living, really there have been. When I first got here in 2010, there were very few international investors in this area, and over the past 2 years now, we've definitely seen a much bigger interest in this area in the Central Valley as well as on the Central Coast.
So I've been following your newsletter for a while now, and it seems to me that you're pretty big on farmland down in the central region, around in Talca, and I know you also have some beach opportunities over as well in the central area. Now, have you been down to the Lakes District and down south, like Puerto Varas and down there, and what do you think of those areas?
I haven't been to Puerto Varas. I've been down to the Lakes regions, the region of the lakes, the region of the rivers, the 9th, the 10th, the 14th region. I like the South. I lived in the Pacific Northwest for about 5 years before I moved to Chile. So the climate down there, the geography, is actually much more similar to where I lived in the States. So it's beautiful. There's lots of attractive things. The tourism is really popular down there. To me, as far as living, as far as investing, it's not nearly as attractive as, say, the 7th or maybe the 8th region. Due to the distance from Santiago, the climate, and the price for land. These areas, the areas with the volcanoes and the lakes and the rivers, Portamont, Osorno, Valdivia, Puerto Varas, all these places, they've actually appreciated. Basically in 2005, 2006, there was a tourism boom in Chile. And during these years, properties in Patagonia and in the kind of middle south started appreciating really quickly. There were some foreign buyers coming in, and a lot of the wealthy Chileans started buying in those areas. So when I got here, seeing the prices down there, probably starting at a lot of times for a half-hectare building lot, starting at 40 to 50K for places a ways down a gravel road, forests, no water rights, not really any farmable land, very far from a city. It just kind of struck me as crazy as investing in that when you have fertile land with water rights, 2.5, 3 hours away from the capital city, from Santiago, or 15, 20, 30 minutes away from a growing city like Talca of 200,000. Also, the coastline down around the central regions is a lot more like California. Down there, the coast is a little more like Oregon, Washington, which is nice, but if I can live by a Mediterranean coastline, it's kind of preferable to me.
Okay, but isn't it like really hot in the summer? I grew up in the Central Valley of California. I mean, it's hot in the summer.
It's true. We're probably, I've been spending some time with some property clients from California recently, and they're talking about how the summertime here is not nearly as bad as the summertime they're used to in California. Where Talca is, it's probably the equivalent of the central coast of California heading inland. It definitely gets warm here, but I don't believe that the summers are quite as extreme as in California, in the Central Valley.
So more like Healdsburg versus Sacramento in the summer.
Exactly. It's really, we're only, if you're to Talca, from Talca to the coast, it's about 109 kilometers, like 70 miles by road. But if you go directly, really distance-wise, straight over the mountains, it's probably only 40 miles away. So you are kind of having a little bit more temperate climate because of that.
All right, well, let me ask you about this. There seems to be this trend of North Americans moving down to Chile and other places in South America. It's a trend. It seems to be small. It seems to be growing. There's this notion of resilient communities, and there's 3 of them that I know of down there in Chile. And for those who don't know what a resilient community is, the concept is, think of a golf community, but instead of being centered around golf, you're centered around a productive organic farm where, each owner has some kind of right to some piece of the farm, and it's just a way where you can be guaranteed of fresh food, fresh water, and neighbors who are like-minded in, living in a sustainable way. So the 3 that I know about, the first one was Sovereign Man's Sovereign Valley, which is down there where you are in Talca, and then the other 2 that I know of are Gulch and Freedom Orchard, which I believe are next door neighbors in, Curaçao? Did I say that right? Curaçao. So, yeah. Darren, I'm dying to know, have you visited them? Have you talked to these guys? What is your impression of each one of them?
Yeah, I've seen all 3 of the properties. It's most larger properties, have several nice characteristics here. Each one of the different projects, in different stages, they have agriculture there. They have some water, some mountain land. So they're all honestly extremely pretty properties. The views of the surrounding hillsides is spectacular from each one of them. I have been to the Gulch property. I took a tour with both of the 2 of the principals of the property there. I didn't actually go inside the property, which was the Freedom Orchard property in Curaçao. From what I understand, they've lost the contract on that one, so I don't think that's actually that they're not going to use that. The supposed first property that Freedom Orchard had is not going to be used for a project, from what I understand. I haven't actually heard that from the principals in that project, but from what I know, they are looking for some other spaces to do the same kind of vision. And the Sovereign Valley farm is in my eyes, the property is the nicest as far as their production. They have plums, blueberries, and grapes, I believe. I believe they, for the number of hectares they have, the amount of water they have is the highest. Once again, these people are always kind of changing their minds on how the project's going to go. But last I heard, the original property for Sovereign Valley Farm is not going to be used as a community development anymore. That's basically just a farm property now for them. So it's a spectacular property, but I don't think, like you said, this idea of the sustainable community, kind of like a Gulch community or something like this, but with more based around agriculture. I don't think they're going to be using it for that purpose anymore.
So Gulch, if I'm from up north and I just want to roll on in and have an instant community, is kind of the only one that looks like it might come together at this point?
It's probably the only one that if you approach them today, they would be able to sell you a lot, or they would sell you a lot. Everybody else says the projects are on hold. From what the last time I heard from these people, 2 or 3 or 4 weeks ago. They would be, they might be your only option at this moment as far as buying in a lot in this kind of, this exact kind of, community idea. There are other properties, other subdivisions that local Chilean real estate developers as well as foreign developers have done. They're not exactly with the same community idea. It's more of a subdivision. They sell lots. So you don't have any, association fees or any restrictions like this. It's basically you bought a property, and then aside from you owning that, you just have to deal with Chilean law. Your neighbors, if they bug you or if you have any issues with them, you settle it as any other local would, instead of being inside of this community with the restrictions and the different codes and stuff like that it might have.
And by settling it like any other Chilean, that means walking next door and talking to your neighbor, that kind of thing?
And in a very extreme circumstance, it might be, involving the police or, a court, if someone knocks down your fence or does some, damage to your property, obviously you could sue them in the Chilean law, in the Chilean court system if you, just like in the States, But basically, most of the time things are going to be settled. Yeah, just neighbor. Hey, what are we going to do with this fence line, or where are we installing the water line?
Well, this brings up an interesting point because I've read that Chilean law is pretty good, and it's pretty organized down there. But what about safety and security? I mean, I know there's like stray dogs running everywhere, and the student protests you hear about. And didn't they just elect a new socialist president who's kind of following on the business-oriented president, which is a little worrisome for those of us who aren't there?
Yeah, let me address each of those individually. So first, you said the dogs, the stray dogs, right?
Yeah.
It's intimidating. Everybody when they first get to Chile, they see a lot of stray dogs and they think, oh my goodness, this is horrible. I'm going to get bitten, get rabies the first day I step foot in the country. The stray dogs in Chile are treated a little differently than in the States. Stray dogs here, normally they have neighbors who kind of take care of them. They don't let them in their house, but they put food and water out for them. So they're actually, most of the stray dogs are taken care of fairly well. And as far as I know, the rate of rabies and things like this is quite low here. So I wouldn't really be, the stray dogs at first are a little odd to see, but it's not really that big a concern if you once you get used to it. The second thing you said, as far as safety goes, I forget the question.
Student protests.
The protests, there you go. The student protests, yeah, protesting is definitely a part of life down here. I've seen probably 3 or 4 different big issues since I've been here. In 2010, one of the big protests was the Hydro-SN, the hydroelectric dam that they wanted to build in Patagonia, which was stalled for a long time. That was probably the biggest protest, one of the biggest protests when I first got here. There was another one. They had in 2010, end of 2010, they had a fire in a prison here in Santiago, and some people died who were incarcerated for fairly not very serious offenses. So this was another thing that people were up in arms about. They were in the streets. And most recently, for the past year, year and a half, 2 years now, I guess, the student protest, people are demanding free education. The elementary school, the high school, and the universities, the students are asking for more. There's a range of requests that they have, more funding or completely free education. The protest, this is another thing. I've had friends who just got to Santiago, and the day they get into town, there's a huge protest, and it's a little scary at first to see. Sometimes they do some property damage. Sometimes the police will bring out tear gas. I've seen them throwing rocks before. You do want to avoid these. I try to stay out of downtown if there's a protest going on, but it's kind of a way of life. The people, they try to take the democracy, if you want to call it that, seriously, and if they don't like something the government's doing, they go out in the streets and complain about it. In this case, they're asking for free education. Some of the students, at least, are asking for free education, which most of the population isn't in agreement with. If you ask your average Chilean, either right-leaning, left-leaning, wealthier or less so, most of them are going to say, yeah, I think the educational system, it does need some reforms. Some of the schools really are in need of more funding. Some of the more rural schools, but everyone recognizes that to give completely free education all the way through university is most likely unrealistic for next to impossible for the country. And
so you're not worried then that the taxpayer is going to be shaken down for free education for all, that kind of thing?
Exactly. So tying into the new president, they should be getting this coming year. In 2014, Michelle Bachelet, she belongs to the Partida Socialista, the Socialist Party of Chile, which scares the heck out of a lot of people. A lot of people think, it's insane to be investing in a country with a socialist candidate, about to take office. For the past, when I first got here in 2010, it was actually the presidency had just changed from Michelle Bachelet. She was the president here in Chile from 2006 until 2010, and just after I got here, Sebastián Piñera, the more right-leaning, business-oriented president, had taken office. So my 3.5 going on 4 years, 3.5 years now here. I've only had the right-leaning, business-oriented Piñera president, and during the time the economy's been marching along, all these subsidies for grants for entrepreneurs and for startup businesses. They've kept the tax code fairly simple. It's been really attractive. A lot of people are worried that having Bachelet as president again, that a lot of the progress that the country's made over the last several years is going to be, unwinded. It's so basically Michelle Bachelet's platform rests on three things. She does want to do education reform. She wants to give more funding to schools. She wants to reform taxes, and she wants to make a new constitution for the country. So starting with education, she hasn't said that, she's a little vague with each one of these, which in politics,
she's a politician. Of course she is.
And once again, some people are pointing this out and saying this is a blank check. She could make education 100% free, just totally, jack up the spending, government spending, and really, rack up a lot of debt really quickly for the country and mismanage the finances. It's, politicians are capable of screwing things up quickly. It's true. I won't deny that. it's something we deal with all over the world, political risk.
But you don't seem too overly concerned about it. I mean, is it that because things have been going pretty well, she says the things to get elected, but really they don't want to mess with it too much?
So the thing is, once again, let's go back to her party, the Partida Socialista. It sounds really, to a lot of people who believe in the free markets, they get pretty nervous about this. The thing is, the Socialist Party in Chile isn't exactly the same as the Socialist Party in the USA. In Chile, in a lot of Latin America, in Venezuela, in Bolivia, let's see, what other countries? Throughout South America, socialist, communist governments, politicians have been common. Even here in Chile, we had Salvador Allende, I've read to be the only truly elected communist leader in the world in history. All the other ones have apparently taken power by some other sort of force. So, once again, some people question Chile is it really the right place for a foreigner to make their investments or to consider a place to live? The thing is, like I was saying, the Partida Socialista, Michelle Bachelet's party, they're really, they're left-leaning, but to compare them to a political party in the States, they're really not socialist. They're like Democrats. Okay. So yes, they do. They're gonna want to spend more on healthcare. They're gonna want to spend a little more on education. They're gonna want to raise taxes. It's honestly, I think it will make Chile a little less competitive over time, over the years. However, Michelle Bachelet has already been president of this country. During her candidacy before, the economy here was growing by leaps and bounds. The national debt was maintained very low. She did make some changes with I believe with the educational system before, a little bit more funding, but it's not things that are going to bankrupt the country. The fact that the country has such low debt right now makes it that even in countries with an extremely high debt level and a large participation for instance in the property market or in other industries, if there's large participation by foreigners and a socialist or communist president comes in place and they have all these bills to pay and they can't afford to keep up with all their expenses, confiscating assets becomes a lot more attractive. For instance, in Bolivia or in Venezuela, countries like this, countries with different aspects like this, it can be more challenging. In Chile, the finances are so solid. The country has a steady stream of income from copper revenue, from the tax base as a whole. So they have this rainy day fund. I don't know if you've heard of this. They have a rainy day stabilization fund, the copper stabilization fund. It's over $20 billion they have in reserves just for some kind of calamity.
Okay, so essentially what you're saying is that she knows how to run a country. She understands the value of not racking up the debt. Yeah, she's going to make some new changes, but it's not so much to be worried about is kind of the message I'm getting here. Okay, so I want to move on to property. Let's say I'm a foreigner, which I am, and I have this fantasy of having a little permaculture farm that I set up, and maybe I put a couple houses on it, make a little family compound, and I've only got $250,000. What can I get for that in Chile?
For 250.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Like you said, you wanted a sustainable farm. There's a lot of smaller scale, little permaculture, bio-intensive farms, operations like this in the Patagonia, in the southern Chile areas, like where you mentioned Puerto Varas, around Osorno. There are some really small, kind of independent projects like this going on. In the central region, it's kind of interesting because with these three sustainable developments, they each have this idea of doing organics. but it's not really the same sort of bio-intensive permaculture design that you see at some of the farms in the south. And I think that this area, even though we haven't really seen it happening so much yet here in the central regions, for instance in the 7th region around Talca, some of the farms heading into the foothills would be incredible for doing a permaculture design on this, having more of a variety of fruit and vegetables grown. And for instance, for the price range you said for $250,000, prices in. Do you want me to give you prices in hectares, acres?
Do acres for me, so I don't have to do math in my head.
Okay, yeah. So farmland around Talca, around in the 7th region of Chile, it's about as cheap as farmland you can find in the country. Farmland closer to Santiago is more expensive. Farmland around Santiago can be $20,000 per acre sometimes, even higher than that, because it's kind of viewed almost as development land on the edge of the city. In the 6th region, it's a little cheaper, and then when you get to the 7th region and also the 8th region, you basically find the cheapest farmland in the entire country. Farmland farther south in the volcano district and the lake district, farmland down there is actually more expensive because there's less of it. It's more forestry land and dairies and milk and cheese production. Around here in the 7th region in particular, the Central Valley, you have the most farmable acres in the whole country. So around here, the price per acre for farmland can be anywhere from starting from about $2,000 per acre for property that's away from the city, maybe not the best access, not sufficient water rights to irrigate the whole thing. That's really low. If you have to buy a larger piece, you can find something like that. Up to about $8,000 to $9,000 per acre.
Wow.
For top-notch farmland with water very close to town. That's basically your range. Say $2,000 to $10,000. So $250K, you can actually buy quite a few acres that way with that amount of money. It would just really be for you whether you want to be closer to town, pay a higher price for completely flat land, at the edge of the city, or if you want to have a larger property higher up and closer to the foothills, closer to the mountains, it might have some more topography on it, and it would be a lot cheaper per acre.
Well, good. I'm going to have to come see you for sure. So we're running low on time, but before we wrap up, I do want to give you a chance to, you mentioned before we started the interview that you had a couple of interesting properties. One was a piece of farmland and another were some beach lots. Do you want to tell us about those?
Yeah, we've got a pretty wide range of stuff available right now from the beach over to the Central Coast. We've got 2 beach lots actually in the same area. One for $25,000 and one for $30,000. These are it's called Primera Fila, the first line of a private beach. So it's nothing between you and the Chilean Ocean, in the Pacific Ocean. And these are half-hectare building lots, kind of a sandy landscape. And these are about an hour and a half away from Talca, towards the coast. We also have a fairly large farm property, 250-acre wheat farm in the about two hours south of Talca. And this one is selling for just about $2,000 per acre down there. It's almost fully planted in wheat. And the total price is a little over $500,000 for this. And
does that come with management? Is somebody leasing it, or how does that work?
Currently, the owner has been arranging the crop. He has his own equipment and has a local farmer plant the seed and keep an eye on it and harvest it at the end of the season. Arranging the crop himself, he's been netting between 10 and 20% as a yield. Over the last few years. So a new person coming in might not expect to make that exact same yield. Might you got to factor in a little room for error at first. But this property is being sold without farm equipment. There's no tractor that comes with it. So somebody coming in could continue farming it in wheat. They could also put it in. There's 3 wells on the property, so you could actually there's vineyards in the area. This could be changed into an orchard, a wine orchard. I actually see this property as really attractive because it has a little crest on it. There's a slight hill at one edge of it, and so this thing has paved road frontage for about 400 meters. 300 meters of the property with the thing extending on both sides, and the crest area, the hill on the western edge of the property, I think would work maybe 10 to 15 or 20 hectares there along this edge would be perfect for subdividing. This is really the quickest way to make money off this property, to cut up a few smaller lots, the half-hectare lots, like some of the other local Chilean developers have been doing in the area already.
All right. Well, that's all the time we have. Darren, I want to thank you for joining me today.
No problem. Thanks a lot.
All right. And if you'd like to get in touch with Darren or any other real estate professional worldwide, please reach out to me. I would love to make the connection. And until next time, I want to say thanks for watching, and we'll see you later.